Welcome to the Futurum Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Newman, Principal Analyst and Founding Partner at Futurum Research. And I am excited about today's podcast, joined by the esteemed Senior Analyst from our team, Sarah Wallace. Sarah, thanks for joining me on the podcast today. It's always fun to have you back and have people on the team come back and chit-chat with me.
Thanks, Daniel, for having me.
Yeah, it's a lot going on. So we've been locked down, quarantined, not traveling, which is a super big change of pace for us analysts that are used to being on the road at events in front of clients, customers, partners, users, learning, writing, blogging, tweeting. But we are doing it all. We're doing it all. We're just doing it all remotely. So you're doing it up there in the great Northeast. I'm here in the Midwest, and overall our life is totally different yet shockingly the same. But I'm glad to hear you're doing well.
Yeah, so talk about, I think you and I traditionally have worked from home, but you know the one thing that the pandemic has really forced a lot of companies to do is shift to this all remote workforce. And as you and I cover the tech space, and we've been talking about digital transformation for probably, a decade now. And it's interesting how it's really kind of forced everyone to really transform kind of without any choice, right? Because of stay-at-home policies. So I think you and I have both been observing that in terms of the vendor space, how the vendors have really stepped up. And they've been releasing these type of agile products for a while now, but now they've really had to come to use. And I don't know about you, but I feel like a lot of our the vendors we cover have kind of stepped up to the plate, and it's actually helped them kind of emphasize, like, look, this is what we've been talking about, and now you really have no choice. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a fascinating set of circumstances. We're doing things differently and yet doing things the same. And overall, we are just figuring things out one day at a time. But so let's dive in, because really over the last few weeks, we've seen a ton of tech events, a ton of tech announcements, and the cloud has been a big focus. Cloud has been a big focus for the hybrid players, the OEMs, the actual hyperscale cloud providers. We're just seeing shift after shift after shift. And so I was thinking maybe we start with HPE's Discover, and we'll just go on down the line from there.
Yeah, that sounds great. So,
why don't I let you go? Because everybody hears from me all the time. So I'm going to let you jump in first, and then and I'll give you my rebuttal, refute, or my agreement, or we'll just go from there.
Okay, so HPE, to me, the last 4 or 5 years especially, they've been really bringing out their cloud capabilities. We have the HPE GreenLake services, and a couple of their big announcement, their Discover event. I'd say it's been maybe 3 weeks or so now. So they had their big Ezmeral container platform, and as we know, containers have been a really hot area of cloud because we can take these software functions, and now they can travel across different platforms. It doesn't have to be platform specific, and it doesn't have to be centralized to a central hardware. So and HP, in making their Ezmeral container platform announcement, even said very boldly, we're doing this directly to take on IBM Red Hat and VMware. And some might think in the industry might think this is sort of a bold statement, but I feel like with HPE's, I feel like they've shown their legs the past 4 or 5 years especially, and I feel like they're up to the task.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think HPE is in an interesting predicament. I mean, the company had a number of different spin-offs. It went from a massive conglomerate of different companies to broken into 4 or 5 different pieces, all substantial businesses. HPE was really the hardware company. When it broke out, it was the enterprise hardware company. But we've seen the shift towards multi and hybrid cloud. And so HPE has a lot of the hardware pieces for converged infrastructure and hyper-converged, from SimpliVity to storage to, its servers to its edge devices. But really being able to use the software to tie it together has been the vehicle that all these OEMs have had to push towards. Dell has had a lot of success because of VMware. And HPE really needed to find its footing. And Ezmeral as a platform, and then its GreenLake suite of consumption-based services have really been sort of its path to maintaining a high amount of viability to tech as these different tech users are moving workloads into different clouds, on-prem, off-prem, private, and public. So this was a big move. The Ezmeral container platform is important for the company. It's going to be important, like I said, to compete. VMware, Red Hat, all these different technologies, plus what's being delivered now, whether it's Outposts and Azure Arc. So as I see it, Sarah, it's going to be a partnership more and more for these OEMs, because in some ways they're going to be competing with the big cloud providers, but in other ways they're going to be needing to be partners. And so having that sort of competition is going to be a really important part for the company. But overall, I agree. HPE is making some important moves.
Yeah, and so I know that you wrote a post about this, and so the other HPE announcement in the last few weeks has been its acquisition of Silver Peak, which is the SD-WAN vendor. I've been following Silver Peak pretty closely since 2014, and I've always been impressed with Silver Peak as a vendor. So I think this is a very natural acquisition, a smart acquisition, and obviously, they're going to combine this with their Aruba business unit. So, and I feel bad I haven't read all the details of your post, but what were some of your other comments in your blog post about this?
Yeah, so what we're really talking about is this big migration. We've got work from home going big. VPNs are at capacity. Software-defined WANs are going to be the way forward for big enterprises. I mean, we're hearing from tech companies like Google. You're talking over a year before they even intend to put people back in offices. This means we're going to need to expand the technology that's going to be residing in people's homes and in remote workspaces, and SD-WAN is going to be one of those technologies that's going to be an enabler there. HPE's Aruba is already a fairly sophisticated set of solutions, and Silver Peak added and enhanced its capabilities. It shows the company's ambitions, provides more technology to enable this remote work. And for HPE, it's just going to be interesting to kind of see how their products are packaged inside and become part of Aruba Central and sort of become this sort of edge infrastructure that's designed for the enterprise.
Yeah. Okay, and I know that you had attended. Maybe we can move over and talk a little bit about Oracle, because it's been sort of a conference season. Can you talk a little bit about Oracle's managed region cloud announcement?
Yeah, so let's move over to Oracle. It's a good one. So yeah. Oracle had a bunch of announcements, but I think the biggest one, if we just wanted to focus on one, was they announced this what they call the Oracle dedicated region cloud at customer. And so the Oracle Cloud team has been doing what's called Exadata at customer, where it's been essentially putting the database on-prem. But as we know, Oracle's focused on building its cloud business. It's focused on being able to seamlessly connect public and private clouds. Again, going back to what we talked about with Ezmeral, we're seeing this hybrid infrastructure sort of win out as the architecture of the day, the architecture of the enterprise of the day. And so what Oracle wanted to do is basically say, for large customers using a lot of cloud that have hybrid needs, we want to build and deliver a fully managed cloud that lives and resides on-prem, but that's going to be entirely managed by Oracle, meaning it's going to be chained off, boxed off, completely separate from your on-prem infrastructure, but that gives you the full consistent control plane across the board. You're talking about a $500,000 minimum investment for companies, not $500 a year, by the way, $500,000 per month. You're talking big enterprises. You're talking about companies that are using Oracle that want to have access to the full suite. And also, one of the big differentiation points for Oracle has been its autonomous database and its autonomous Linux. And so for companies that are looking for sort of a 5, 6, 7, 9 uptime, ongoing connectivity, patching, reliability, but that also need to meet hybrid requirements, that also have governance and data, egress costs that they're trying to avoid, that have, sovereignty, all these different things that on-prem and hybrid are enabling with one consistent control plane. This is going to be really interesting. And I also think as companies are moving more and more to multi-cloud, we're going to see iterations of this where companies are going to have something like this from Oracle, and they may still have AWS Outposts, and they may still have Arc, because what's going to start happening is this seamless connectivity is going to be done in a few different ways. The architectures are going to be a combination of hardware and software driven, and as companies in many cases use all these different providers simultaneously, so these offerings are going to continue to come out. We're going to see more and more of these from more different companies.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the trend, especially the last 2 years, has really been about hybrid cloud. So being able to have on-prem choices and also the multi-cloud, as you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and Oracle didn't really stop there. I mean, it part of this offering included its dynamic, its autonomous database. The company added a number of enhancements to its supply chain cloud. It updated Fusion and its ERP and its process management suite. And I think something you actually looked at closely too, that I thought was interesting, and a little bit different story than just architecture, but Oracle is actually also using its cloud on the to create sort of this National Institute of Health COVID-19 prevention network, which I don't know. Did you have a chance to take a look at that?
Yeah, so I did write it. There's a post future on the Futurum blog. So basically, the National Institute of Health has asked Oracle to help them create this registry, and this registry. So it's volunteer, but ultimately the NIH wants millions of people in the U.S. to register. So you can volunteer for, and this is large scale testing for vaccines and also antibody testing. And these trials, there's going to be hundreds of them, right, to choose from. And so it's a big undertaking. We're talking, everyone in the US. And I believe, and I wrote this in my post too, with Oracle's cloud capabilities are up for the task, but it is, and the thing is, the NIH, thing to know is they want to do this quickly, like they want to do this ASAP. So, we always talk about scaling in this industry, but it's going to be a true test. So.
Absolutely. So another company that, made a number of announcements, so it was Microsoft, another company that had its earnings this week, but Microsoft also had one of its biggest events, its partner event, Inspire. And at Inspire, it made a lot of announcements, but not so much about Azure, but really more on its software as a service side. So Azure saw another 47% growth this last quarter, which is an impressive number, except when you compare it to its past growth numbers, which had been, in the 60, 70, 80 and above. So we're starting to see the law of large numbers and same sort of growth that AWS was privy to during its wave. But as the number continues to get bigger, the growth rate continues to shrink down. But other areas of focus have really started to shine for Microsoft. And one of those areas of focus has been its Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. The company actually, for the first time, disclosed that the Dynamics business is a $3 billion run rate business now, becoming much more substantial. And on top of that, that doesn't include the Power Platform, which is the company's low-code, no-code platform for designing applications or running the business. So at the event, Sarah, the company announced a number of verticalized solutions, connected stores, fraud protection. It had a new Qualtrics competitive product called Customer Voice. Has some enhancements to its customer insights that has really helped the company win some big customers, including Walgreens most recently. And then, of course, it also updated to its customer data, not CDP. It's customer, it's cloud data, common data service. Sorry, that just totally slipped my mind. Into a new platform called Data Flex. So the company's doing a lot of things, but this is a little bit interesting because it's outside of the traditional IaaS side, and really it's on the PaaS and SaaS side where Microsoft seems to be really leaning in.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you talk about verticals. You and I've talked about this, and we actually did a healthcare cloud webcast the last time, but we're seeing a lot of these cloud players doing customization for verticals because they know that a horizontal play isn't going to fit for all the different types of special needs, whether it be regulation or in the case of healthcare, special HIPAA requirements. And so Microsoft also just extended their relationship with Allscripts, which is a huge, health record company. So they extended that partnership to another 5 years. So that's pretty significant. Allscripts is a big player in the healthcare field. So.
Yeah, lots of wins across the board. I mean, the company announced wins in this space with Coca-Cola, Tom Siebel with his new company, and anyone that knows ERP and CRM back far enough in history knows Siebel Systems. And Tom, decided to use the platform for his own new venture, C3 AI. A number of important wins, and big BNY Mellon too. These have all been pretty significant for Microsoft, which has sort of sat a little bit in the background in the ERP and CRM discussions, but now it's really starting to get some legs and take off. So another company that had a big wave of announcements, we can only really touch on a couple of them, was AWS. And AWS, speaking of low code, no code, Sarah is getting into the fray there, launched a new platform called Honeycode. Honeycode is basically designed, it's a fully managed service to build web and mobile applications, programming free, and basically everyday business programs. This will be, competitive with what OutSystems is doing, but also competitive with what Microsoft is doing, and competitive with a number of players that all Google app sheets, Google's doing this. It just seems like low code, no code is in everybody's purview right now.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that it's trending in, now, because back in the day when we were first making, web pages and people used HTML, and then I remember Microsoft Front Page came out, and it was like you didn't have to code the page. And so, but I think the driver behind the no code is, a lot of customers, they want their different stakeholders in their company to be able to have access to this information and to be able to do reports, but not necessarily have to, be coding experts. So I think it's a natural course. And as you're right, I think all the major players are going with us, which I think is smart. So.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more and more of this, the citizen developer, those that actually know what's needed. It makes me think of the old movie Office Space when you talk about I'm the sales engineer. I'm the one that helps the customers understand, the engineers understand the customers because the engineers can't understand them. Well, in a lot of cases, you need someone that can basically derive the use case, which is oftentimes not easy to articulate to the person that knows how to do the coding. And so this is also about expediting business processes, right? Someone knows what needs to be done but can't do it. Well, what if they could? And what if they could do it quickly, deploy it, roll it out, improve it continuously, and do it all in cloud, all without a lot of knowledge of development? This isn't to eliminate developers for complex topics. It's just for simple everyday applications that often are bottlenecks in terms of companies' improvements. A couple other announcements included a relational database service on AWS. This is a continued development, as AWS and Outposts are basically, looking to give more full control of your database deployments. And this is an area where, we kind of talked about Oracle earlier. This is an area where AWS has kind of been, more playing catch up here and wants to offer more complete products for its customers.
Yeah.
And then there was one other one. I think you covered this one, but don't correct me if I'm wrong. And you talked about there's a new IoT SiteWise, which is something that AWS is focused on. Is that something that you tracked?
Yeah. I didn't write a blog post about this, but I know about this announcement, and it really goes with this trend. We're talking about verticals, so this is really kind of a focus on industrial and manufacturing, and it's to help those type of customers with their IoT and really be able to better manage and extract their data. tying in with the AWS services. And so not just from AWS, but under other vendors, cloud vendors are really being laser focused on IoT and specifically industrial functions. So again, this goes along with our theme from earlier about how these cloud players are really being focused on verticals such as industry and manufacturing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think vertical clouds are just going to continue to gain more and more weight. Speaking of vertical clouds, last week IBM and Adobe partnered up to offer transformative capabilities for CX, and this is for their financial services public cloud. And the premise here was basically that the advancement of regulated cloud workloads has been somewhat slow. Financial services maybe has about 10% of workloads in the cloud now. A lot of those are critical workloads that are slowly being moved that way to provide greater control, flexibility, access, redundancy for the banks. But due to all the compliance and regulatory states, the migration has been somewhat slow. But IBM has basically worked with Bank of America and a few others to build a standard set of compliance meeting required capabilities, software. It's used OpenShift with Red Hat, which was a massive $34 billion investment to enable this. But additionally, what we're going to start to see now is that next wave of capabilities, and for the financial industry, being able to provide greater levels of customer experience through the utilization of common data and complete data services. Adobe's part of what's called ODI, the Open Data Initiative, with SAP and with Microsoft. Well, being able to use all that data as part of your financial service cloud capabilities is going to grow more and more important as we want to touch on things like CX. And so this partnership with Adobe, which is arguably the leader in CX-based cloud platforms, was a big one for IBM, and it's partially an advancement, it's partially catch up. Adobe's partnered with a lot of clouds, so this isn't like, oh my God, they're only partnering with IBM. But Red Hat and OpenShift is a unique differentiator that's going to give more weight and more power to companies that are using IBM's cloud, especially in financial services where IBM is very strong, and bringing next layer of cloud-based customer experience tools to it.
Yeah, I thought this was a smart partnership, right? I mean, IBM, since its launch with its financial services ready public cloud, it definitely has the confidence to handle the financial services customers, and just kind of adding the Adobe was sort of the cherry on top of the sundae. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we're also seeing a similar set of relationships forming out too between SAP, IBM, Red Hat. So I think, without spending a lot of time on this one, what we are essentially seeing is partnership is starting to really run the show across the board. None of these clouds are all inclusive and do everything as much as many of them would like to be. Companies have legacy software relationships. They have ERP, CRM. They have customer service. They have teams and collaboration. They have productivity. And as companies have a disparate set of tools, the likelihood of a full 100% standardization is pretty low. So we're seeing more and more companies kind of saying, how do we use all the data concurrently together on a single control plane, or on on less control planes, which is where OpenShift has gained a lot of popularity. That's where Tanzu and VMware, that's what Ezmeral is trying to do. That's what Azure Arc is doing. AWS has an offering. And this is to bring multiple clouds and multiple prem solutions together. And I think this is going to be a more and more popular topic over the next several months.
And so speaking of VMware, I think, kind of towards the end of our topics here, there was an announcement last week that there might possibly be a spin-off. And I don't know if you wrote a post about it yet, but did you want to comment about that?
Yeah, I've covered this. Long story short is, there's a value gap. Michael Dell is a financial engineer. He went public, went private, went public, and every time he returns value to shareholders. The company acquired 81% stake in VMware, and right now the market cap of Dell is about $38 to $42 billion. The estimated value of VMware alone is like $90 billion. And so basically, this doesn't come down to a technology play. This comes down to a financial play. It's just not been great business that VMware, as part of Dell Tech, is just not getting the value. People are not valuating the company for the contribution, whereas VMware by itself would field this huge additional valuation. It would be a big capitalization move for both VMware and for Dell. And I think it's a really interesting move. My only concern about this move is that it plays a little bit negatively to Dell Tech Cloud's offering, because it's such an important offering for the Dell EMC and the Dell Tech side, and it's going to all of a sudden put the company in a position where it needs to kind of shift its consideration of how it's building out its offerings.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, VMware has such roots in virtualization that I agree with you. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I would say you take the cash and buy Nutanix, and then do the same thing with Nutanix and blow it up. I don't know. It again, all speculation, but it is interesting starting to hear about some of these big moves. It's timely, but yeah, I mean, so much news, Sarah, in cloud, and I mean, we just breezed through like 20 things in about a 30-minute window here.
Yeah.
Very interesting, and I appreciate you sitting down with me, talking cloud, talking tech. A lot going on. Everybody out there, hit that subscribe button and tune into us here on Futurum Tech Podcast. So we have lots more of these conversations with Sarah, with myself, with Shelly Kramer, Fred McClymans, Olivier Blanchard, Ron Westfall. The whole team of us are all regularly trying to get out there, trying to talk about these things. Also, check out the Futurum Research blog and the research notes. Lots of coverage on a daily basis of everything that's going out there. But for now, got to say goodbye. Sarah Wallace, thank you so much for chatting with me. We got to go. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
There will be plenty of more tech topics and tech conversations right here on the Futurum Tech Podcast, FTP. Hit that subscribe button, join us, become part of our community. We would love to hear from you. Check us out, futurumresearch.com or Futurum Tech Podcast. Daniel Newman, Fred McClymans, Olivier Blanchard. We'll see you later.